Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to make a video talking about my career in modeling, how I got started, tips if you are also interested in a glamorous and fabulous career in modeling. For those of you who may not already know me, I have been modeling professionally for 5 years now. I specialize in modeling related to belly dancing, and I also do boudoir and artistic nudes. In the time that I've been doing this professionally, I've traveled all over the US booking shoots, and I've done thousands of photo shoots with hundreds of different photographers. It's been a really awesome career for me. It's given me a lot of freedom and flexibility in my income. It's given me a really amazing creative outlet, and I've met a ton of really great people this way. A lot of people don't really know about the part of the industry that I work in. When I tell people that I am a model, I get a lot of confusion, like, oh, what agency are you with? Or, oh, do you work with fashion brands? Can I see you in a magazine? And no, not really, actually. I do not have an agent. I book all of my own shoots, and I make my money primarily by being hired directly by the photographer. So mostly that means that I'm working with hobbyist photographers who are looking for a reliable and experienced model to work with, who generally have some other stream of income that supports their hobby and allows them to hire models. Or I'll be hired by professional photographers who, again, are looking for someone who's reliable and experienced and professional, maybe to try out new lighting setups or to pose for a workshop. A lot of professional photographers will host workshops for newer photographers to learn how to work with models. So I'll book work that way, or even just as a creative outlet. When you work professionally as an artist and you're taking on gigs, executing other people's ideas, you might not be able to find a lot of creative fulfillment for yourself. You may not be able to bring your own ideas to life unless you take the time to hire models and set up these shoots that are just for you and that allow you to bring out your own ideas and see your own creative inspiration come to life. A lot of people in the industry look down on this kind of modeling. They don't really consider me to be a real model. I don't have a huge Instagram following. I am not an influencer. I am, frankly, by their standards, too short, too fat, too old, and too ugly to be taken seriously as a model. But you know what? To those people, I say I'm sorry that you're upset by what I do, but I'm gonna keep doing it anyway. I've been doing this for 5 years at this point. I've been supporting myself in full or in part through my modeling, and I really don't need anyone's permission. I can just do it, and I think that's pretty awesome, actually. And really, to anyone who wants to model but feels like they don't fit the mold and feels discouraged to even try because of it, I say do it anyway. Like, we really need more types of people in the photography world. Representation matters. The reason that brands and the beauty industry work with such a narrow range of people in their ads is because they know that most people don't look like that. And when they look at these pictures of these impossible beauty standards, it fosters these insecurities, and people that are insecure are easier to sell to. And the antidote to that is to see more people that look like us in these images. And the further I get into my career, the more firmly I believe that beauty is something you create for yourself. It's not an inherent thing that you have or don't have. Like, there's a lot of skill that you can work on to be the best model that you can be. So if you're waiting for someone to give you permission to get started, like, here's your permission, you have it, just do it. This can be a really difficult job for a lot of reasons. It can be really difficult to get started. But I really recommend it. It's been really positive for me in my life, and I have learned a lot over the years. I've definitely made some mistakes and learned some things the hard way, so that's why I'm making this video, just to share things that I've learned and advice that I wish I'd known when I was getting started. So hopefully you'll find some value in this. So I got started with modeling relatively late. A lot of people start in their late teens or early 20s, but I actually did my first shoot when I was 24. And I had been interested in modeling for a really long time, but I kind of was just waiting for, like, permission, I guess. I really had low confidence and low self-esteem, and I just kind of really didn't think that I could do it. And I wanted someone to just say, I believe in you. I think you can do it. And that doesn't necessarily come along for everyone. And since I didn't have the confidence to pursue it, I got started later. The way that I got into it was actually through belly dancing. I had been belly dancing for about a year, and I had just started performing, and I danced at this show, and there was a photographer there, and I saw the pictures afterwards, and I was like, wow. I've always thought I'm not a very photogenic person, but when I saw these photos, I was like, wow, like, I really like these. I like how I look. And so I contacted the photographer afterwards and I was like, hey, do you mind if I maybe post some of these pictures to my social media? I really like how they came out. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, of course. And if you're interested, I also do studio shoots. So you're welcome to come into the studio and I can shoot some pictures of you for your portfolio or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, someone's giving me permission. Someone's inviting me into like this world that I've wanted to be part of. And that ended up going really well for me. It ended up starting my career, and actually that photographer and his wife ended up becoming pretty good friends of mine. They host me sometimes when I travel through the Bay Area, and they're really, really sweet people. However, I do not recommend, if you've never modeled before, that you do what I did, because I had obviously met him at the event that I was dancing at, and I had, you know, a sense that he was a good person. But to be honest, like, there are just so many sketchy people that are looking to prey on people who want to be models. And just because you've met them in person at an event, that doesn't tell you anything about what they're going to be like to shoot with in a studio. So I'll talk more about safety a little later in this video, but I really recommend you check people's background a little bit more than I did. And it's been so long at this point, I can't really remember, but I think that he actually offered me some references of models that he'd worked with before. And I was like, I've already like met you. I don't need to vet you. Which is a terrible idea. Don't do that. It worked out fine for me, but like there are so many sketchy people out there claiming to be photographers. So like protect yourself, please. I obviously just kind of got like offered this opportunity. But if you're getting started and no one just like hands you an invitation to do a photo shoot, I would check your local photography Facebook groups. There's usually one that will include models. Some of them are just like for people to post pictures of their landscape photography or whatever. But if you can find one that's specifically for photographers and models to network, that's a good place. Or a lot of people will book shoots through Instagram. I personally don't really like booking shoots through Instagram, but a lot of people do it. Or if you know someone that's already modeling, you can ask if they know someone that might be willing to do your first shoot with you and help get you started. They might ask you for a fee for your first shoot, because if they're a really professional and experienced photographer, it is kind of a lot of work for them to like pose you and kind of get you acclimated to being in front of the camera. Or as in my case, they may offer you what's called a trade or TFP shoot. And that is a scenario where no one pays anyone. The compensation is agreed to be the use of the photos that both people are able to have. So after I did my first shoot, I continued to do a bunch of trade shoots in my area. I lived in Santa Cruz, which is a pretty small, kind of geographically isolated town in the Bay Area. It has a really strong artistic community. So once I started working with one photographer, other people reached out, and I kind of got into this photographic community in Santa Cruz. And so I was just doing trade shoots with several different people and kind of starting my social media presence and figuring out being in front of a camera, how to negotiate before a shoot, and getting the lay of the land a little bit. Pretty much immediately for me, when I started modeling, I knew what I wanted my career to look like, and it looks today very similar to how I wanted it to look in those first shoots. I knew that I was interested in doing more belly dance modeling. I was interested in doing more like fantasy and like costumey type stuff. And I knew that I was interested in shooting boudoir and art nudes. And so I got started with that pretty quickly on because I felt really confident that I knew what I wanted to shoot. And that's a benefit, I think, to starting a little bit later in your 20s. I felt like I knew myself well enough at that point that I was really confident in my decision. And I have absolutely no regrets about anything that I've shot because I really had that confidence that it was what I wanted to be doing. When I first started modeling, there was a site called Zivity that was really big at the time, and anyone that was in the photography industry at the time is gonna laugh when I talk about this because that was like the shit for a while, but it's gone now. It basically was like a proto OnlyFans. You could upload your photo sets and people could buy them, and the proceeds would be kind of like split between the model and the photographer, and people could like contact you and order custom sets and stuff like that. So that was where I made my first money as a model and kind of like started to figure myself out, figure my aesthetic out, and kind of like start to build a fan following. But at that time, I was working a 40-hour traditional like 9-to-5 job, and I was going into an office every day, and I was, to be honest, really struggling a lot. Part of it was that I had worked really hard to get a job that paid pretty significantly more than other recent college graduates were getting from similar jobs, but it still wasn't a living wage for living in the Bay Area. So that was really frustrating to be working so hard and still kind of scraping by. And then also, frankly, I was really struggling with my mental health. That job was just like a really high pressure situation, and I was really struggling to keep up, and I was just so unhappy. I won't get into it too much, but I generally am just happier when I'm self-employed than when I'm going into an office every single day. And I've talked a little bit about this, but like I have depression and some mental health stuff going on. So I was just really not feeling like that job was working very well for me, and I was really, really looking for an out. So pretty much as soon as I saw that I could make money from modeling, I quit, like kind of very impulsively, without really a lot of other work lined up for me. And would I recommend that to anyone that's considering modeling? Absolutely not. Would I do it again? Yes. But that did kick off like the worst year of my life, which was 2016. Basically, I had just moved into a new house, and like as soon as I quit my job, we were on a month-to-month lease, and the landlord decided not to renew the lease, so we had 60 days to get out. And the housing market in Santa Cruz and the whole Bay Area is just like so impacted. And I stayed in the area for another 6 months after that, but I was just like constantly on the verge of homelessness, and it was so stressful. And when I quit my job, like I didn't really have much in the way of a safety net. I was like kind of using credit cards and like being very minimal in what I was spending money on. But I had told myself I'll just get like a temp job or a part-time job if I really feel like I am not making it financially. So a couple months went by. I was still struggling with housing. I was struggling with money. So I picked up a temp job, and it sounded like a really good job for me. It was like at an art-related nonprofit, but it ended up being so freaking sketchy. Oh my God. Like I'm pretty sure that it just existed as like a tax shelter for the two rich people that were running it. That's a whole other story. But even though I was having all of these struggles with housing and money and this sketchy job that I picked up, I was getting my social media presence established. I was booking my first paid gigs, which was really exciting for me. Just getting used to being an independent contractor and promoting myself. I set up a Model Mayhem page, which by the time I signed up for Model Mayhem, a lot of people were saying it had been on the decline for a while, and I would say since then it's declined even more. But I still consider it to be really worthwhile to sign up for, even if you're starting out now. Basically, it's a portfolio site that's specifically made for models, photographers, makeup artists, other creative professionals in the photography industry. And because it is specifically set up for networking and booking shoots, there's a lot of transparency in how established someone is, who they've worked with before. And I just feel like more confident when I book shoots off of Model Mayhem than I do from social media. And because it's gone downhill so much and like a lot of people have left the platform, most models don't consider it to be worth maintaining Model Mayhem anymore, but there are still photographers that use it that are looking to hire models. So maintaining my Model Mayhem presence has booked me a lot of work, even though it's supposed to be a dead site. So in July of 2016, I turned 25 and I really hit rock bottom. I quit / got laid off from this sketchy temp job. I wasn't eligible for unemployment because I was like considered not a full employee. I was living in a temporary living situation and I had to be out by the end of the month, and I just could not find anywhere else to move into for the life of me. I was booking some gigs for modeling, but nowhere near enough to sustain myself. So facing homelessness, I had to pack up everything and relocate almost 400 miles away to Southern California to live with a family member that offered to take me in. And that was a really, really awful time in my life. It was really, really demoralizing. And when I landed there, I really didn't know what I was going to do. But I started getting more and more offers for paid shoots, and I started networking more and more. And people in the Bay Area were still contacting me like, are you coming back sometime? Because I would love to work with you if you're in the area. So I started making trips back and forth between Southern California and Northern California. And I was booking work in both places. And I was still kind of scraping by, but I was working really consistently, and I did feel like I was getting the hang of my business. I was still charging a lot of things on my credit card. I still didn't really have much of a security net, but I really could see that things were starting to turn around. And as another year went by, I started adding more cities to travel to and started meeting new photographers and working with new people in new places, and things just slowly started to grow. My social media started to slowly get more of a following. The photographers that I was working with were posting pictures of me in their portfolios and on their social media, so I was kind of starting to get a little bit of name recognition, and people were reaching out to me because they had just seen pictures of me around, and it was just getting easier and easier to book shoots. At first, I really struggled with lower quality gigs. I'll talk more about this later, but I was just in a situation where I felt like I couldn't turn down gigs that I knew were just not as professional or not as good because I needed the money. And I worked with some people that didn't really respect me, didn't really respect my rates, and that really sucked. And then also, there were a lot of fluctuations in how much I was making from month to month. Like, I remember the first month where I booked $4,000 worth of shoots in a single month. I was so excited. And then I was like working all the time. I was like going from shoot to shoot. And the next month, like, there was nothing on the calendar and I made like $400. So there were a lot of joys and a lot of frustrations. But the general trajectory was upwards. I worked full time as a model for, I guess, like 2 years-ish. And then I finally started feeling ready to take on belly dancing gigs. So I started kind of splitting my time between those two things. And I started teaching yoga classes, and I started doing part-time / freelance marketing work. And so really since then, I've been like kind of half and half modeling and like everything else. And in like the last couple of years, I've also started adding more like fan income. So I sell my photo sets on a site called Bentbox. A lot of people do OnlyFans, obviously, but I really feel like I don't have a lot of time for that because it is kind of like a part-time job. When you have an OnlyFans, you're expected to continuously be uploading things because people are paying every single month. So they want to be getting their money's worth. Whereas if you're selling your photo sets, you just kind of set it and forget it. Once you upload it, people can just go in and buy it at any time. And I'll just like wake up in the morning and I'll have made like, you know, $15, $20 randomly here and there. And that's a really good feeling. It's just nice to have like real passive income. And I've also gotten started more on the back end of the camera. I've been learning a lot about photography and videography and doing more self-portraits. I've even picked up some professional photography gigs, which is really cool because when you're in front of a camera so much, you can't help but learn things about cameras and lighting and Photoshop and post-processing. And it's really cool that these things that I was just kind of passively absorbing through these years of being a model have ended up furthering my career. And obviously this year is really weird because of the pandemic. I really have been barely shooting at all, but I feel like I've really established myself more and more every single year in the photography industry. People are just more and more aware of me. They're asking me to let them know if they travel to their cities. So when things start to open up again after the pandemic, I'm really looking forward to adding some new cities and working with some new people. And I just feel like I'm in a really good place with my modeling career. It's good money, it's flexible income, I make my own hours, I get to work with who I want to work with, and I just love being self-employed. It's not for everyone, not everyone wants to be their own boss, to be frank, but I think I just kind of have the personality where I like having my own business and I like being self-employed. And it's just been a really great thing for me that I've been able to have this in my life. So the first thing that I want to talk about is safety, because it is very important. Especially when I first started modeling, when I would tell people I was going to shoots, they would be kind of like scandalized and concerned for me. They'd be like, "You're going to a studio to shoot alone with a photographer in the nude?" And having done like thousands of shoots over the years, it's really not as salacious as people think it is. But there is a non-zero amount of risk involved. I don't think it's like the most dangerous career in the world by any means, but you do have to be very aware of the risks you're taking and really be careful to minimize your risk with each and every shoot that you do. When there's discussions about staying safe at photo shoots, the number one thing that people will say is bring a friend. And there's some pros and cons to that advice. I don't think it's necessarily bad advice, especially if you're very new to modeling, maybe you're young, maybe you're not very good at reading social cues and you feel more secure having someone to kind of like have your back. I'm not talking about bringing your shitty boyfriend. I've worked with so many photographers and so many of them have a story of someone's jealous, possessive boyfriend coming to the shoot and just like being super weird and making everyone uncomfortable and just kind of ruining the whole shoot. Step one, don't date shitty dudes in the first place. But if you must, definitely do not let them damage your career. But that aside, say you have a friend that you trust and are comfortable with and you want to bring them along to a shoot because you don't necessarily like feel confident that you're going to be safe working alone with this photographer. Here's my issue. If you don't feel confident that the person you're working with is safe, the solution should not be to add another person to the mix. It should be to not go in the first place. You should be doing everything in your power before you ever show up to that shoot to be feeling very confident and secure that you are going to be safe and feeling good throughout that entire shoot. The process of messaging back and forth with the photographer is a really crucial thing, and it gives you so many indicators of how the shoot will be. If you feel weird when you're setting up the shoot with this person, if something feels off, if you just kind of have this gut reaction, don't shoot with them. I have navigated thousands of these conversations at this point, and there are so many red flags that can pop up during that time. It can be kind of hard to know what they are when you're first getting started and you don't really know what these conversations are supposed to look like. But just a good rule of thumb is if something feels off, don't go. The sad reality is there are a lot of creeps claiming to be photographers, and they do target newer models, younger models, because they expect that they will be able to push you around more because you don't know what you're doing yet. And I'm trying to be more gender neutral in the pronouns that I'm using here, but when I say photographers, when I say creeps, I'm talking about men. For whatever reason, photographers do tend to be male. Even in different areas of photography, there's just a skew towards male photographers. And ladies, like, you know, we have to keep our wits about us when we're like at the bar, when we're walking by ourselves at night, and going into a situation with a photographer, you have to keep your wits about yourself too. Obviously, there are a lot of great photographers as well. I have a lot of people that I really like that I've worked with a lot of times. Hashtag not all photographers, but yeah, there are a lot of sketchy dudes that are gonna try to like slide into your DMs and want to meet up with you and just be really weird. And it doesn't have to be like that. It does not have to be like that. Don't be afraid to turn down most of the people that reach out to you when you first start putting yourself out there as a model. When you're first getting started, that is the time that you will have the most weirdness directed at you. And because you don't really know what you're doing yet, you'll have the least interest from people that are legit and know what they're doing. For every new photographer that you work with, you should ideally be checking 3 references for each and every one. So what I mean by checking references is like Go to wherever they post their pictures, if it's like on Instagram or if you're talking through Model Mayhem, see who the models are that they've worked with and just send a handful of them a little short message like, hey, saw you worked with this photographer. How was it? Do you recommend working with them? You know, try to do this like a week or so before the shoot because it'll generally take a few days for them to get back to you. You know, we're busy. But that should give you a sense of like what someone's like to work with and whether or not they're on the level. If they have pictures up but they don't have any of their models tagged, you're gonna have to ask them for some names of models that they've worked with. Sometimes photographers don't credit their models because not everybody wants to be credited, especially if it's like nude photos. Sometimes people don't want to be credited for privacy reasons, but keep in mind, if they don't have any models credited, there is a possibility that there's some skeeviness going on there. It could be that they have something to hide. Maybe they don't want you to contact the models they've worked with, or maybe they don't actually own these photos. Maybe they stole them off of another photographer's portfolio and they're claiming to be a photographer when they're really not. Photographers that are experienced professionals will expect you to be checking references. If you ever mention that you're checking references for a photographer and they're like weird about it or give you any pushback, that is a huge red flag. So yeah, that's like the best way to keep yourself safe. Going back to the concept of bringing a friend with you, like that may be all well and good for like your first handful of shoots. But what happens when you're doing like 200 plus photo shoots in a year? I have a lot of friends. We love each other very much, but nobody likes me enough to babysit me at my job day in and day out. That's just not reasonable or realistic. I know I'm like talking a lot about safety, but it is really important. You do have to stay safe at your shoots. The next piece of advice that I have is to focus on getting quality, not quantity. Not all gigs are created equal. Work with nice people who respect you. I talked a little bit earlier about how some people kind of look down on this form of modeling and they don't really think it like counts or is real modeling. And you will have some people messaging you wanting to shoot with you that don't actually respect you, and they will kind of like nag you and put you down and try to make you feel bad about yourself so that you will maybe negotiate on your rates or maybe like negotiate on your boundaries, and you really don't need that. I've also really tightened up on my definition of like what is a nice person that is respectful that I want to work with. One time I was doing a shoot with a photographer that I'd actually worked with several times before, and we were like walking back to where our cars were from like the hiking trail that we were shooting on, and we were kind of just making conversation, and he was like, oh, do you know this model? Like, what do you think of them? And it's someone that I really like and admire, and I was like, oh yeah, like she's awesome. And he kind of like cut me off and was like, yeah, I worked with her once at a group shoot and I never used any of the photos. She's just too big. And I just thought that was really shitty. I mean, photographers do have preferences in the types of models that they want to work with. You know, that's no secret. Like some people don't want to work with plus size models. Some people specifically want to work with plus size models. But to be just like putting someone down in that way, especially to another model, like that's just really not cool. So I never worked with him again. And I don't really regret it because looking back, I feel like he kind of wasn't that respectful of me either, but that just kind of like clued me in that he's just not a very nice person in general. I also decided back in like 2018 or so that I wasn't going to work with racists anymore, which unfortunately did really hurt my income for a little while, which is why I was glad that I was taking on other gigs. I don't know why. Photographers often skew male and they often skew Republican. And I have a Facebook that I use primarily for modeling and for photography contacts. And I was just really shocked with what I was seeing people post, just really nasty things about people of color, about queer people. And I made a decision at a certain point that I just didn't want to take money from those people anymore. And I didn't want to have that kind of toxicity around me. And so even though it represented a financial hit, I made the decision to not work with these people anymore. And I'm not gonna lie, there was a dip in my income after I did that, but then it ended up strengthening my business because the people that were left were more loyal to me. They saw that I was really serious about the things that I believe in, that I was really serious about doing what was right. And they really respected me more for that. And also people that care about Black people getting murdered by the police, people that care about migrant children being separated from their families, like they care about people more in general. So those are the people that are gonna treat you better at shoots generally. And I just really wanna like impart to you that it's never worth taking money for a shoot if it's going to like make you feel shitty about yourself, if it's going to make you feel less respected, less good about who you are, less good about the world or the industry in general, just don't take that gig. The next piece of advice I want to give is to bring 110% to each and every shoot that you do. If you want to be a professional model, you have to behave professionally. So that means really good communication before the shoot. You need to be really clear about what time you need to be there, where the shoot is, what you're bringing, what you're shooting, and what kind of looks you're going to put together for this. Are they supplying the wardrobe? Are you bringing your own wardrobe? Will there be a hair and makeup artist? And then on the day of the shoot, you need to be punctual. My advice is to aim to be 15 minutes early, so even if you're running late, you'll just be on time. You need to be timing how long it takes you to do your hair, do your makeup, get all of your stuff for the shoot together, and then you need to look up how long it'll take you to get to the shoot location so that you know you're leaving enough time to get ready and to get there. Maybe that sounds really basic, but honestly, if you can get the hang of this, you're gonna be ahead of like half of the people that wanna be models. However, that is not enough. The reality is this is a really cool job. It's a job that a lot of people want to have. And if you are not bringing the best that you can each and every time, you're going to be overshadowed because there are a lot of really amazing traveling models. Like there are so many and they're so good. And if you want to be able to be on their level, you need to work really, really hard on yourself. You have to check your ego at the door to do this job. You need to learn how to critique your own work and honestly evaluate what are your own strengths and weaknesses and what you need to do to elevate yourself to the level of these people that you really admire. Think of the models that you see on social media that you really like, that you look at their photos and you're just like, oh my God, like I want to be like that. You have to compare the photos that you're creating with their photos and really honestly consider, what's the difference between these two photos? Like, what do I need to be doing differently to create these kind of photos that are just so jaw-dropping that when photographers see it, they're like, oh my God, I have to work with that model. Like, she's amazing. And that's a really long process. It's something that grows over time. It's something that you're going to have to work on every single year to keep elevating yourself. You're going to have to work on your hair and makeup skills. You're going to have to work on your poses and your ability to pull them out from memory on command. You're going to have to develop your personal style and learn what kind of clothes suit your body and your look and your personality. The list of things you can work on can go on forever. It can be as many things as you're willing to take on. But you have to make this commitment to yourself, like, every year I'm going to take better pictures. And that's how I've primarily been able to grow in my business, is just like incessant quality control, just like incessantly pushing myself to be better and better and better. I didn't start out where I am now at all. I wasn't very good at like styling myself. I had a really like limited repertoire of poses. I didn't really know like what suited me best and what didn't. And I have just really pushed myself consistently, and every year I get a little bit better. And I still feel like I have so much more that I want to learn, that I want to accomplish. But every year as I get a little bit better, people see that I'm putting in that hard work. And at the end of the day, photographers talk. If they see that you're really hardworking, you're pleasant to work with, you're really talented, they will tell other photographers about their experiences with working with you, and you'll get a good reputation for yourself. But conversely, if you're not very punctual, maybe you're flaking out on shoots at the last second, or just not really bringing your A game, you're going to build that kind of reputation too, and it's going to really hurt you in your career. You're going to miss out on possible connections that you could have made through word of mouth. It doesn't matter if you think you're worth your rates. And it's not enough to just tell people, oh, I'm worth you paying me this amount of money. Like, you have to show them and make it really apparent that you are an investment that is worth making, that you are going to bring skills and contributions to the table that are going to help further their creative goals and help them get the photos that they want to get. So you kind of do have to be like a really type A perfectionist person. That's just sort of the nature of the beast. You have to really realize that good enough is not enough. Yeah, I could like literally talk about this for like hours and hours and hours straight because I have so much to say and because obviously I'm really passionate about it. But I'm gonna wrap this here because I feel like this is probably already way too long. Let me know if you got anything out of this or if you want me to make any more videos going more in depth with any of these topics. You know, feel free to comment if you have like questions that I didn't cover. Sometimes people like DM me questions about my career and I don't always have like a lot of time to get back to each individual person. But I might keep making videos about this to help people get started because it's just something that I'm really passionate about and I feel like I have a lot of information and experience with it. That's not COVID. I've just been talking a lot. Yeah, I just feel like I have a lot of experience with this topic and I might make this into like a little mini series if people are interested. So yeah, hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more things about my modeling career and other shenanigans that I get up to. Thumbs up this video if you like it, if you got something out of it. It really does help me with my placement in the algorithm, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you have a good rest of your day.